This week saw a spate of delivery service protests flare up across the south of Johannesburg and in parts of Cape Town. Well, to explore the dynamics at play further, we are joined in studio by Father Smangaliso Mkhatshwa of the Moral Regeneration Project and former Mayor of Pretoria. He's also the inaugural President of the United Cities and Local Governments of Africa. Good afternoon, Father, and a big welcome on the SABC News Desk.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity.
Father Smangaliso, some of our communities clearly on the boil again. How much of this tension do you think could be diffused with more thorough engagement between communities and political leadership before it becomes this destructive?
Last year, I was invited by the Department of Infrastructure Development to conduct a campaign which seeks to discourage people from destroying public property, public infrastructure. We have visited communities, organizations, we've visited young people, old people, workers, and we've asked the question, why do you destroy public property? And the answers that we are getting almost invariably is that, one, we are not being heard by those in authority. They don't really take us seriously. We have tried several times, we get no joy, and we've come to the conclusion that it is only when you damage something or damage somebody that they listen to you, that you get their audience, that they take you seriously. Now, this is what many of them actually are saying. But the truth of the matter is that a problem of this nature is also very complex because there are a number of causes. One cause, in my opinion, is that if you look at lots of the protesters, they are young people. I mean, you get a 12-year-old who is demanding an RDP house, and you ask yourself what this young fellow should be in the classroom, not in the street, and so on. Secondly, I think people are not mad. It is also true that in many instances, promises are made, and because they are not kept, and people just feel so discouraged, and therefore they resort to something that is actually quite undemocratic and against our own constitution. And it is ironical that 24 years after our democracy, you still get these kinds of different forms of protest and violence, and some of these actions look to me almost very irrational. If you take the example of the trucks that were towed in Moy River, if you look at the incident in Northwest Province, where some young fellows mounted roadblocks, stopped vehicles, demanded to be paid, and you have to go to say to yourself, something is not right somewhere. So what is happening, therefore, in the south of Johannesburg, in a way, unfortunately, is symptomatic of what seems to be a general trend. And it's something, therefore, that we as organizations in society, whether it's churches, whether it's organized labor, women's political organizations, I think we really seriously need to find ways and strategies of not only just how to curb the violence, because under normal circumstances, people do not always act violent, but to try and find out the root causes of why people behave the manner in which they...
Father, we are looking, if I can come in there, we are looking at hundreds of years of institutionalized racism, and it's left us a cruel, demeaning legacy that's not easy to bounce back from in just 20 years or so. But we're also seeing very blatant corruption and financial mismanagement in some of our municipalities. And this manifesto results in a level of distrust between residents and local government authorities. How do we go about repairing this kind of damage in our communities right now?
One, there is trust deficit. I think there are lots of people out there who do not trust their political leaders for one reason or the other, because of allegation, and sometimes, of course, quite truly so, of corruption, poor governance. And I think, therefore, if we are to get over this problem, let us have communication that is honest, that is reliable and consistent. Not only talk to people when violence erupts. It should just be a normal way of working together. Secondly, I think also the parents, particularly when their children are involved in this, they have a responsibility to call them to order, and the police must also arrest those that perpetrate violence and so on, and who break the laws. Now, having said so, though, as I say, the fault is not only on the protesters. Sometimes the fault is with us leadership, because we take time to speak to the people. People get the feeling they don't really count, they're not taken seriously, and so on. And I think if we come much closer to the people, much as was the case, particularly 25 years ago and so on, when those who were involved in the struggle, the leadership was very close to the people on the ground. Now, unfortunately, that kind of very close relationship of trust and a almost feeling of respect for one another seemed to be in short supply. So with a new mood in the country which says, let us build together, let us hold hands, let us listen to one another, I think that message should go out loud and clear, but it must be followed by action. If a minister so-and-so or a councillor so-and-so says, we are going to build this, that in so many months' time, and it does not happen, he or she must not be afraid to go back to the people to apologize, to tell them there are very good reasons why we've been unable to honor our promises. Because then people will know that you are showing respect for them, you are taking them seriously, and that indeed something will happen.
There are some examples, though, in our country of excellence in local government. It's not a complete disaster, and these examples of excellence we can actually leverage on. There are municipalities that exist that are operating effectively with clean administration, strong internal audit controls, and so on, and sound financial management structures. How are they getting it right here?
I agree with you. I also do know for a fact that there are certain municipalities that are doing exceptionally well. But they are doing so because, first of all, the people that are elected to serve are ethical leaders. They respect the people. They call regular meetings to talk to the people, to listen to the people, but also to report what government is doing. Because some of the people that go on the rampage, they don't even know that there are certain platforms that they can use in order to ensure that their grievances are addressed and addressed adequately. Those leaders are hard workers, they are committed to their job, they are not corrupt, and that's why people listen to them, and they can even be tolerant when maybe certain services are not being provided because they've got confidence in those people. So we can learn something very positive from such very good examples, and that's one way to curb the violence that is going on at the moment. But also for people to realize that we are in this business of building society, building a new country, transforming it together. That is not only just the responsibility of government, but it's all of us, each one in their little corner somewhere. And therefore, but I'm very confident myself that hopefully with the new mood that seems to be coming into the country, there's a long way that we can go in order to address some of these grievances. We cannot have a situation 24 years after democracy to have the violence that has erupted in northwest provinces, in some parts of KZN, now in Johannesburg, and in Mpumalanga, in Limpopo, in all these areas, because that brings about almost a feeling of instability in the country instead of positive stability, which has a direction moving forward together towards a new South Africa.
Father Smangaliso joining us from our Pretoria studios. Thank you for sharing your insights with us so generously on the